Welcome to Last Neanderthals podcast. My name is Khushal Yousafzai.
And my name is Wali Khan. You may not know us yet, but that doesn't really matter. All you need to know is we are the last Neanderthals. We are dedicated to having interesting and engaging conversations with individuals who have a lot of experience and an immense amount of knowledge. We hope to learn from these people and grow as human beings. We want you to listen and grow with us too. So come along the journey and evolve with us. Welcome to this special episode of the Last Neanderthals podcast, where me and Khushal are going to reflect on the podcast we've had so far and give you guys a little bit of an insight into what we thought about them and maybe some stuff that happens behind the scenes as well. So Khushal, 1 month into podcasting, going strong so far. How have you found it?
Very rewarding.
Yeah.
Not just in terms of results, like we ranked top 50%. Yeah, after 3 episodes.
Yeah,
But just
sick.
the conversations, setting things up, learning more about each other, learning more about ourselves, learning more about our guests. Man, I think I found my dream activity, I could say. But yeah, the dream is to have it as a job as well.
Yeah, inshallah.
Yeah,
Because
inshallah.
it is really fun, like having these conversations, even when the guests come on who have not done podcasts before, they're always like, oh, is that it? Like, can we keep talking?
Yeah.
Because it is so fun just having these conversations.
Yeah.
Like it's what we just do generally. Like I love having conversations. So be able to like put them out there and, you know, learn from people. And like Rav told us, one of our previous guests, he said, if you invite someone for coffee, they may say yeah, but likely they're going to say no. But if you invite them onto a podcast, they're much more likely to say, yeah, I'll have a conversation with you.
100%. And the thing is, right, conversations are so powerful that, you know, when I was in a dark spot in my life, it is essentially conversations that change your life with other people and the conversations you have with yourself. So imagine like these people that we bring on, they have played a massive role in our lives. And then the world get to see them as well. Like we are so lucky that we have access to technology that they're the most brilliant minds, whether it's in psychology, whether it's scientists, whether it's athletes, that we have access to them, and like to be able to contribute to that with our own circle, man, it's a blessing.
Yeah, exactly. And the future's looking bright as well. We have some very exciting guests lined up. And I'm sure if you guys tune in, you'll really enjoy those episodes. Okay, so reflections on the podcasts. The first podcast we released was with Belal, Palestinian activist and poet. What was your main takeaway from that podcast?
My main takeaway, the thing that resonated with me was the pain of building relationships. And you know how much pain like comes with love as well, right? I think one thing that resonates with me that Bilal said, so Bilal's got extended family in Gaza right now, right? And he was saying that for the audience, just to let them know that, and he was saying that it's hard for him to build a relationship with his cousins and his extended family because he can lose them any moment. And I've gone through that in my own life where I'm like, man, these beautiful people in my life, one day I'm going to lose them, right? And it's hard to sometimes like connect with people. It's a very deep subconscious thing where you don't want to fully give yourself to other people because there's that fear of losing them.
Yeah.
But like, you got to put this spin on. Like what I learned basically is that you have to get over yourself. You can't be self-centered. Like you need to look out, like you need to think more about other people and be of service with them. There was this one time, there was this guy with a cancer, right? He had 2 cancer. He was basically, they told him that he was going to die in 6 months, and he actually lived on for 8 months. And my dad was like, oh, you should come and meet him, right? And I was like, he's going to die anyways. Like, it's going to hurt me. He was like, sometimes, Khushal, in life, you have to do things for other people, you know? And I'm glad I went because I would have regretted not meeting that beautiful human being. Sadly, he passed away, but like, you know, there's a beautiful energy that he left that will never die.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone leaves an impact on your life, even if it's very small. But yeah, that was just It was a really sad thing to think about, because you do make yourself vulnerable when you're building relationships and connecting with people. So yeah, just thinking that he had that always in his mind, especially when he talked about his like little cousin, when he was saying he couldn't connect with him out of fear he was gonna die. When it's like a child that you're thinking about like that, I don't know, it's a lot more impactful, I think, and it's sad to think about everything that's going on there. But Belal as a guest was very good.
Yeah.
He was really articulate, he was intelligent, and he brought a lot to the conversation which we didn't know.
Yeah.
And one thing I found really interesting about that conversation is, so we recorded that October 27th, and then in the months following that, the things we spoke about came into light more and more.
What in particular?
So we spoke about the prisoners, the child prisoners held in Israeli prisons a lot of the time without any charge. And we talked about the like 99.9% conviction rate in Israeli prisons. So basically anyone who does anything wrong is convicted in Israeli prisons, even if they're just waving a flag, throwing a rock, and they're held there for charge for so many years. And then we spoke about the water situation in Gaza as well, which many people don't understand. But these things are coming into light more and more. And it seems like the narrative is shifting now. We even spoke about the role of the media and people like Piers Morgan, who also seem to now be shifting towards more Palestinian support, because I think they see the tide shifting. And I think it's for self-preservation. I don't think they have suddenly become these amazing humans, because if 10,000 people killed wasn't a point for them to be like, oh, we should stop bombing people in Gaza, I don't think 20,000 would be either. But I think it's for self-preservation. They now see the tide is shifting and they have to choose the right side.
100%. And Bilal was also critical of the UK government, and when there was a voting done at UN, what did the UK do?
They abstained
from the ceasefire.
Yeah, America said no to a ceasefire. They vetoed the decision, which it's infuriating. But the UK is now taking a position backing ceasefire after just 1 week, 2 weeks after abstaining on that decision. So it's a dirty game, man, and it's lives that are being lost. It's heartbreaking. And Joe Biden even said Israel's bombing is not indiscriminate. So he said that they're just bombing whoever. They don't actually target people. And there was a report that came out which showed that most of the bombs Israel is using are not guided. So they're just randomly dropped. But the weird thing is they have the technology. They've been provided it by America to use guided bombs, but they still choose not to. I don't know why.
I mean, it's just they want to inflict so much fear that those people leave their land. That's what it is, I think. And like another Pope Francis was also against it, right?
Yeah.
I was very happy about that.
He's been very vocally in support of the Palestinians from almost the start, I think. Which is amazing. And then obviously the tragic thing happened recently where Israeli snipers killed 2 Christian women in Gaza. Think about it, snipers killing women. It's not like, oh, you can't use the excuse now, oh, it was a bomb, we accidentally killed them. They were targeted. But yeah, that was also a difficult conversation to have, because you feel so helpless, like we can't really do anything.
100%, yeah. And I mean, his family's back home. You could see the pain in his eyes, and all you can do is pray. And I think he had his aunt or someone passed away, and you know, and you're like, all you can do is reach out, and that's about it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, thank you to Belal for coming on. If he's
honestly
listening.
Such a charismatic guy. Has very bright future, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Go follow his socials, keep up to date with what he's doing.
Yeah, we're gonna put it in the description. What a guy.
Yeah.
Should we move on to the next guest?
Yeah, so the second podcast we released was with Dr. Fiona Reynolds, the doctor who played a pivotal role in saving your sister's life. And I think one thing that is interesting about this podcast is it's actually the first podcast we ever filmed.
Yeah.
And I think you can tell.
Yeah.
I think you can tell the production level is not like it is now. You can tell we were quite nervous with the questions we were asking and stuff. But the good thing is, like, the progress we've made in such little time.
Yeah.
That was not filmed that long ago, and we've come quite a long way, I'd say.
Yeah. And knowing about the little things, like not having the room too hot, because I was very hot, I can't lie.
It was boiling.
And the conversation was very heavy as well. So I did go get triggered. I mean, of course.
Yeah.
And she was recounting like how, you know, critical Malala's situation was, and, you know, how it was a miracle that she survived, essentially.
Yeah.
Right? It is literally a miracle. And, you know, for years I used to entertain these dilemmas in my head, like, oh, what if the worst of the worst thing happened, and, you know, what would my life be like, and all of these things. And like, to the fact that things have gone right, like, alhamdulillah, that my sister's now graduated from Oxford, she's engaged, it doesn't seem real. Sometimes you get that imposter syndrome, that you sometimes think, is this really my life? Like, you know, but I think the solution to that is gratitude. I think, and acceptance as well, that you have to accept the good. I think a lot of people, I was speaking to Elias about this, you know, sometimes people can't take a compliment.
Yeah.
Some people also can't take blessings, which is very weird. They don't know how to cope with. I think they're so used to him. This is my theory, right? Like, when my life started to get better and there was a bit more certainty, I would like voluntarily sabotage myself in order to basically make, like, because I was like, things are just bound to go wrong.
Yeah,
so
I remember you saying that to me as well. You said you couldn't enjoy the happy moments because you were expecting the sad moments to come right around the corner. So you were just waiting for the sadness and the misery to come, which it's a really sad state to be in. But like you said on one of the podcasts we did recently, that gratitude has really helped you deal with 100%. That. And I think that's a really powerful thing. And I think one thing you said, which was really good, was like, you have to be actively grateful and actively look at the things in your life that you're grateful for, because it's so easy to just focus on the negatives, because 100%. Like, when something goes wrong, you see it jumps out at you, but we just expect things to be going well and going nicely, so we don't really notice them as much. One thing I found really interesting about the Dr. Fiona podcast is that everyone knows about your sister's situation, Malala Yousafzai's situation, but no one really knows kind of the details of what exactly happened and how she survived. So it was really interesting getting that insight into it, especially the medical insight as well, because like, everyone just thinks if something like that happens, how are you gonna survive?
And rightfully so, because, you know, no one survives being shot in the head. Like, but I think when she went into detail, I hope that educates a lot of people on the situation. Yeah,
exactly. And and then speaking about the recovery and all those challenges, it was really a very interesting conversation. And the COVID part as well. So when we spoke to her about actually medicine recently, that was really interesting, because we kind of pushed her on the COVID narrative and the vaccine narrative, because people have been very skeptical. Even after we posted the podcast, a lot of the comments were ridiculing Dr. Fiona for her extremely pro-vaccine stance. But she stayed strong on it. She still believes in it very firmly. Which is good. And she gave us a lot of insight into that as well. Like, she said 90% of the vaccine was already developed. And I think if people knew things like that, it would kind of change their mind a bit. But
they have a problem even with that.
I saw that.
Like 90%, how convenient. But you gotta understand.
That comment.
You gotta understand that these scientists, right, when a virus pops up, it's not like a completely new thing. The SARS virus, all of these other viruses, these are like COVID related. Like
so there's SARS-CoV-1. And this COVID-19 was SARS-CoV-2, so it is very similar.
So they got a vaccine for these viruses from, like, you know, for the less lethal ones, so they have a basis. Like if we didn't have a basis and foundation, like technology has come really far, right? So that's why like they were able to collaborate on this vaccine and develop it so quickly.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are saying, oh, it wasn't that dangerous, so it was very fishy. COVID wasn't that dangerous. Like the thing is, it's like humanity has come really far. When we look at pandemics in the past, people barely had any basic hygiene. They didn't even wash their hands,
Yeah.
right? They had no ideas that germ existed. This is a very recent thing. So they were expecting something like bubonic plague.
Mm.
The thing is, at the standard we are, right? Barely anyone should have died. The fact that we let so many people die because of poor political decisions like Boris closing things early, like that we should look at that. Wow.
Closing things late.
Closing things late. Yeah. And like you look at New Zealand, look, they closed things early and they barely had, it wasn't that severe for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you get what I'm saying?
And I think it's understandable that people are very hesitant about the vaccine because it was new technology and it hadn't been tested for very long. Still don't know what the long-term side effects of it are going to be. But I also think like, I don't know. I don't think it was like some evil plot for people to take over. I genuinely think scientists were trying to do their best. And the thing of like how convenient that they had 90% of it developed. I think one thing people should realize is that scientists have been warning, people have been warning of viruses like these for a long time, because COVID relatively was not that deadly, but we could really have a very deadly virus in the future, which could just have a very deadly impact on humanity, like something we can't even fathom. But yeah, in terms of the vaccine, lockdown and stuff like that, it is very tricky because there's so many different conversations, so many different opinions. It's hard to know what you should believe, what you shouldn't believe. Even with the lockdown thing, people point to Sweden and say they barely had a lockdown. They locked down very late and only for a short period of time, and they weren't affected by it as much. But I think one mistake people make there is they try and compare Sweden to the UK, but the population of density of the UK is a lot higher than Sweden. If you compare Sweden to Scandinavian countries, that's where you can get an accurate representation from. But yeah, it was all in all, again, a really interesting conversation we had with Dr. Fiona.
100%. I think it would be great to have her on again.
Yeah, definitely.
Because there were so many questions.
Exactly.
That we could have asked. So our next guest was Rav. So Rav was, at age of 21, man decided to leave everything behind and become a monk. That's very courageous. I mean, you know, like he said, though, there was a bit of escapism involved, right? And also a bit of like self-discovery. But to take that step, you have to be very brave, and that's admirable.
Yeah, definitely. And he said he was someone who's quite obsessed with his image and stuff like that. So going from that to just being a monk, like shaving your head and all of that, it is a massive leap. Like I can't imagine doing anything like that. I'm not gonna lie. But again, it was a really interesting conversation. Hearing his perspective on fatherhood as well. Told us about declarative language, which was quite an interesting approach. I don't know if I would apply it so much because I don't know. Because the thing is, it is a really good approach to tell your kids, like, to just say, oh, granddad's here, and then wait for them to take the appropriate measures, like say hi to granddad, whatever. And then he said, if they don't do it, then you have a conversation with them, maybe at another period, explain to them, oh, when granddad comes, you know, it's nice to say hi to him, all of that stuff. Explain that. But one thing I was wondering is, do you think that makes the kid very sheltered? Because in real life, there will be people who will be blunt with them and say, don't do this, do that, go and do that.
Ooh, that's a very good point.
Because then
to an extent, I think you need to have a healthy balance where they also need to be able to, you need to be a, you know, that traditional parent and tell them exactly what to do. Let's say if they're slapping another kid, You can't give them declarative language.
True.
You need to be telling them like, stop slapping the other kid.
Yeah.
You get me. You can't. I think declarative language is a soft approach, but I think that's also very needed, because if you then take the other approach where you micromanage, that's very unhealthy too, because then your kid will be looking for commands, right? They will constantly like, they won't have that that confidence to explore, right?
Yeah.
It's like for example, abusive parents, their kids, they usually become they don't take much risk and they become yes men. They say yes to, not in terms of like, oh, pleasing others, but in terms of saying yes to basically everything. That, like, let's say if you tell me that, oh, Khushal, can you help me with homework?
Because they're scared of repercussions.
They're scared of repercussions, right? It's not necessarily for validation, but I might have an exam tomorrow, but instead of me helping myself, I help you. So it's like extreme selflessness out of fear, which is not really selflessness. Like, your selflessness should not be at the detriment of you. Like, that's, that's like a bit like, that's a bit too extreme, right?
Yeah.
A good friend would not wish that on you.
Exactly.
So it's like, there should be a bit of balance, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And we spoke about religion with Rav as well, which was obviously quite interesting because he had been a monk for 7 years of his life. And I think you could still obviously see the impact that had on him. Like he did have, although he was quite rational and critical, he did have ideas on God and things like that he brought forward, and almost like based, like, drew conclusions from, which was quite interesting to see, like, this balance of someone who's being critical and rational but also had these like preconceived notions almost. And I don't know if that was a subconscious thing, like some conclusions that Rav used as a basis to like then further the conversation on religion. I don't know if they were just logical conclusions that you could make. Like one of them was what was
Why is Prophet Muhammad the last prophet? There was that one.
His
God's evolution as well.
Yeah, those two to me, I didn't see how they would just be like just conclusions. Like, why, if we are evolving, why should God be evolving as well? I didn't really understand why that is a coherent conclusion you draw from one to the other. Like, we could be evolving. If we are evolving, that doesn't necessarily mean God has to evolve. And when he mentioned Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as well, and he said it doesn't make sense that there would be a last prophet. And by the way, he wasn't criticizing or anything. He was just having like this thought experiment.
Yes, thought experiment. It came from a very good place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But again, like, I don't know why could he not be? I don't see the conclusion. Obviously, he said this thing that, in other religions there's like 10 universes and stuff like that. And he mentioned about how if you were God and things were going wrong, then surely you'd think, maybe we should send another prophet or stuff like that. But then I think that kind of discounts the idea of religion, that this is a test and we have sent everything in its purest form, and it's up to you to take that test and like pass, basically.
I wished that we talked more about the positive aspects of religion. Like, one thing I was trying to, and I think Rab was aware of this, like, religion is not all bad. I think he very much understands this. But what I didn't want that podcast to be like just criticizing religion. I do wish that I spoke more about how religion gives meaning to a lot of people, right? Like, there's a lot of nihilism going on, a lot of lack of purpose. I think religion is, very useful to give people a purpose bigger than themselves if taught properly.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Of course it can radicalize you, but I think we must be humble enough, and we must understand that anything can be manipulated. Exactly. Science has been manipulated to create nuclear bombs. Communism, Stalin killed 1 million people. Capitalism, I mean, that has had huge repercussions.
And I think as well, I think one really good thing we got from that podcast was Rav's how Rav was on the podcast. Like, it was very conversational.
Yes.
He was asking us questions while we were asking him questions as well. But the issue with these things is like you have such a short time. Like that conversation could have gone on for hours
Hours,
and
yes.
hours and hours. But that's probably why I was so focused maybe on the negative aspects of religion and stuff like that, because we had to like do it in such a short period of time. But yeah, it was really good having like a proper conversation, like where it's not like as much of an interview, but the guest gets actively involved as well.
And that shows how good Rav is at podcasting. I mean, he's got a podcast of his own, Evolving Doors.
Yeah.
So do check that out. It's a great podcast.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, the guy just brought out the best in us. Like, got us passionate about the topics, got us thinking. That question about Prophet Muhammad being the last prophet. Like I need to go and like seek answers. Very very good question. And I think it was an absolute pleasure to have him on. And I think that's the type of guest we need to have on, like quite like in good regular intervals, because of how much he gets us thinking. And we
Yeah.
want guests like that, that makes us think. Like we don't want to be, we not know it alls. Like we're learning. Like one of the main reasons why we started the podcast is to learn from others.
Yeah, we're very far from
Yeah.
know-it-alls. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was definitely a very good podcast. And then the last podcast that will have gone up before we released this is the one we did with Waleed.
Yes.
So Waleed was a survivor of the army public school shooting in Pakistan in December 2014, I think. And yeah, this was just a really emotional, powerful, moving conversation. And I know it had a big impact on you while he was speaking about it.
Yeah.
So,
Midway, when we took a break, I was just out of it, man. I like just the fact that these people put this guy through, these terrorists put this innocent guy who was just at the school trying to get his education, all of his seeing his best friends die in front of him. Like I think about you guys when he was speaking about that, right? Someone took Elias, Wali, Ollie, Shine away from me like that in a blink of an eye, in the most horrid way. Man, like it was just too much. And I just went to the bathroom and I started crying. you
yeah,
know and then, like, man, the courage he has, the fact that he can tell that story and not break down. He said that he used to break down when
yeah,
he,
exactly.
like, the fact that he's come this far, that he's strong enough to be able to say that story. Man, yeah, it's incredible. And this guy, he's had his 16th surgery, man.
Yeah,
It's not like, okay, that incident happened, like it took 3 4 5 years to recover. He's had a very, he had implants done recently. And man, like, it's his 16th time that he's getting better in another surgery. Surgeries going wrong, surgeries, that require another surgery. It's just,
yeah, it's so sad, man. And the thing that moved me the most about that conversation is when he said he almost accepted death. He said, Allah, God, I know I'm gonna die, but I just want to see my mother one last time before I die. That sent goosebumps, like shivers
yeah, it's
down
making me
my.
teary now, man.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway from that is just gratitude.
He was very grateful as well, despite going through all of this, right? To be that grateful, man. He's the bravest human being I know, man. I've
Yeah.
not seen anyone who's gone through more suffering than that guy, bro.
Yeah, and just imagine being in that situation. Like he was conscious the whole time, seeing his friends go through that, being shot himself.
8 times.
Oh, the terror, the absolute fear you must go through. I don't wish that on any human being, but he's come through it as just a strong, resilient young man. We went for food with him after, and he was able to still joke and talk, and it's amazing how far he's come and how he's really been able to now speak about the situation and still be in good spirits.
Yeah. I wish I could just tell him, like, it was hard to speak after he told us that story, that I was just like kind of repeating how much he means to me, rather than like truly tell him, like, how much impact he's had on my life, like be able to say that to him, because I was a bit out of it, but like uni or whatever, I've been going through a very difficult time, he comes to my mind. I'm like, what if Waleed can go through that, right? You can go through this, Kushal.
Yeah.
Do you get me? And it's like, he's my hero, man. He's my hero, and I can't wait for his episode to be posted, and I can't wait to push his story like as much as we can, because man, he deserves the recognition, he deserves the praise, and people need to, they need to know stories like Waleed's, because we're all stuck in a bubble. We all are in a bubble.
Exactly.
And there's so much suffering going on, and we need to be able to make room for, like my sister said, suffering that's taking place elsewhere. I know, of course, this Palestine and Israel situation is very serious, but that shouldn't mean that we ignore all these other people who are going through so much suffering, whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's in the Ukraine war, Russia war. So yeah, man, Waleed was great.
Definitely.
Yeah.
He's such a I think that was the first time I really met him, and he's just such a nice guy as well. Like, there's not enough good things we can say about him.
Very funny, man. He's hilarious. He's
very
hilarious. And also recording SWAT memories with him.
Yeah,
that was really fun. Yeah.
That podcast is, I think it's really amazing. Like, if you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. You will definitely get something out of it, and I think it will leave a genuine, lasting, positive impact on you, because like it just makes you so grateful for the life that you have. Like, whatever you've gone through, it's just, I don't know, that it's amazing how
he puts things into perspective, and bro, his patience as well. That, like, things went wrong in that podcast for a while. We had to start re-recording, right? And bro, he was just sitting there patiently, like, if we did that with any other guests that we didn't know, they would have been utterly disappointed with us.
Yeah,
but he gave us the patience. He was, gave us that friendly energy throughout, and did not mind, even though I was very apologetic about annoying him.
He had to wait for a while because of the technical difficulties that we had, but he was just fine with it. He was okay.
Yeah, it shows his character, man.
Exactly.
Special guy.
If that was Kushal would be throwing a tantrum. You guys brought me all the way here. No, I'm joking. We wouldn't do that. But yeah, it's been all the podcasts so far. I've thoroughly enjoyed all the conversations, and I've really took important lessons away from all of them as well.
Yeah.
Which I think was the key thing for us starting this journey. Like, we really wanted to learn more. And there's no better way, in my opinion, to do that than to have these conversations.
100%. And we are only getting better with this. Like, now we have realized the importance of a checklist and writing things down, right?
Yeah.
Like, having a nice, like, okay, these things need to be ready before the podcast. Have we thought about, like, the temperature, the water, the little things that can make the biggest difference in how good of a conversation you have, like we have.
Yeah.
So it's just been a great learning experience, and I just can't wait for us. Like, I'm excited to see us, like, where we're going to be in the next 1 year.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think we're going to make a lot of progress, inshallah. Even in this small period of time we've come so far, like a year down the line.
Yeah.
Inshallah, we'll be doing big things.
And we gotta also appreciate the people who have been listening to us, sharing our things, because like, man, these are our day ones. We will not forget.
100%.
We will never
100%.
forget.
And like, reach out to us, DM the Last Neanderthals Instagram, Twitter, whatever. Just reach out to us. We want to know if you're listening and what you think of the podcast. Like, any feedback is appreciated. Like, if you think we talk too much, tell us. If we think we don't talk enough while the guest is talking, tell us. We want to know.
Yeah, and if you got an amazing story, we would love to have you on as well. Like, we would love to share your story. We don't care about your numbers. We just care about you, right? Yeah. And reach out to us if you wish to share your story with us, and we would love to have you on.
100%. We want people's stories to be heard.
Yes.
So, like we said, it's been a good journey so far. A month into podcasting, going strong, and I think everyone's recognizing us now as, like, these guys are actually taking stuff serious, which is good as well for us.
Yes.
So yeah, it's good, man. It's exciting. It's fun. Can't wait for what the future holds. And if you want to join us on this journey, you can find the Last Neanderthals podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and for the video version, you can go to YouTube. Remember to subscribe on YouTube. Remember to follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and download our episodes. And also, can't forget about the Neanderthals podcast.
Yes.
So, you know, as we spoke about on this podcast, we've had people on where we've learned a lot from them and we've grown. On the Neanderthals podcast, however, we just give our unqualified opinion on things. We just talk like a group of friends, just react to things, have a nice conversation, and it is genuinely funny and entertaining. So if you're in the mood for something lighthearted, you can check out the Neanderthals podcast as well on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube. Thank you for listening, guys. We'll do another reflection episode once we've got a couple more podcasts out. If there's anything you want us to talk about, let us know, send us a message, and we'll definitely talk about it as well. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening, guys.